hear me, I just want to first say thank you for joining me. We have a few dignitaries in the virtual audience, among them former Mayor Don Zimmer, I believe Council Vice President Jennifer Giattino, uh, Councilwoman at Large Emily Jabor, and we also have great partners from the DEP and Dennis Reinick. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name. Um, I should know after all these years,
That was
uh,
actually better than anybody's ever done it, Mayor.
right? And much easier is Alexis Taylor. And forgive me if I've forgotten anyone else. So this is a really historic juncture in the rebuild by design phase, which is an innovative, holistic concept to combat the impacts of climate change in Hoboken. This is not your run-of-the-mill construction project. This is not, although the repaving of Washington Street was critical to the city's infrastructure. This deals with issues that are as large and and possibly larger in terms of making sure that we are resilient as a city and we survive through the coming decades and are able to combat the impact of climate change. So we have now gone through multiple phases, reached a record of decision, gone through the design phases, and are at what's called the first aspect of the construction phase of the rebuild by design project. I want to just make sure everyone knows and the public is aware that it's incumbent upon all of us who are stakeholders who've invested so much time and energy in this project for people to know that this is a critical initiative to keep Hoboken resilient in the coming years. We're not fixing potholes. We're not fixing subsurface infrastructure. We're beginning a construction phase of a project of historic nature, one that was provided us through almost $250 million in federal funding that was secured by Mayor Zimmer, to her credit. And now we have the historic opportunity to act on it and to really break that cycle of rebuilding into destruction and rebuilding and destruction and rebuilding. It also has the opportunity to substantially have an impact on and protect the value of property in Hoboken by keeping water out of the city, the type of flooding that we all bore witness to during Superstorm Sandy, as well as the chronic flooding. So this project is by and far in the amount of time I've had the privilege of serving in Hoboken as a member of the council and now as mayor, this is far and away the most substantial and critical project that I've ever had the opportunity to be involved in. I also want to acknowledge Councilwoman Fisher, who's joined the call as well. Thank you, Councilwoman. But what I also want to do in amongst this room, this virtual room, is not just acknowledge the significance of this project, but in part, from my standpoint, the importance, incredible importance that all of us who understand why this project is so important to make sure that that message is heard loud and clear by the general public. Because for anything great, for anything that's special or is going to have a huge impact, oftentimes there are costs, whether they're monetary for the construction or they're related to quality of life. When you go into the construction phase, you see a greater impact on certain aspects of quality of life. And what we want to make sure people understand is that we've done a tremendous amount of work, the DEP and their team, to mitigate impacts on quality of life. But it's also important for people to understand that to the extent that there are any disruptions, this is for a historic purpose to keep Hoboken resilient for decades and generations to come. And again, to impact, to combat the impact that climate change is having on us. So with respect to the actual phasing, this construction phase will begin in, I believe, in early May, but Dennis and the DEP team will get into those details. And also the details as to why certain phases. We're starting with the storm sewer separation in the south end, the north end of the project area. Why they're critical to the project in the larger context. So just wanted to again impart how important this project is to the city of Hoboken, to my administration, and really to the Hoboken's history moving forward. We want to be a resilient city, and getting this project, getting a shovel in the ground is historic, and getting this project through completion is is necessary in order for us to move forward as a city in terms of combating the effects of climate change. So with that, I'll pass it on to Caleb, or Caleb, if you want to introduce the mayor.
Sure. I think, Dawn, you're ready to go, right?
Yeah. So, Mayor Bala, thank you so much for inviting me to say a few words. I just wanted to be here to congratulate you and your administration, Caleb, everyone that has worked so hard to get to this day, and Governor Murphy and the DEP team. I mean, working through this pandemic to keep this project moving. And I was really proud that we were able to reach the record of decision before I left office. And I remember talking to Mayor Bala and saying, like, I have a few top priorities I hope you'll stay focused on. And rebuild by design was number 1, 2, and 3. I mean, it's just, for me, I really feel strongly that this is the future of Hoboken. This project, it's critical to the future of the city. And I know construction projects are always a challenge, and I hope that the community will, as you kind of work through the challenge of that construction going on in your neighborhood, think about how much harder it was during Sandy. And I remember during Sandy, after those floodwaters receded, we were dealing with 10 to 12 foot high piles of debris through every street on the western side of the city. And as soon as we cleared it, there was more debris out there. It felt like a war zone. And I honestly, I just never want Hoboken to go through that again. And this project will make sure that we never have that experience again. And so it's important for the public safety, and for everyone with our homes and our businesses and everything that was impacted by Sandy. And and we will be a model. Hoboken will be a model for resiliency going forward. So this project is critical. I know again, the construction will be challenging, I'm sure, but it's just so important. And I hope everyone will kind of take a moment to reflect on the challenges that we did experience during Sandy, and why this is so very important to the future of the city. And congratulations again to Mayor Bala and Governor Murphy's team. It's terrific to see this moving forward, and I'm thrilled to remain involved through the community advisory group. Thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Caleb.
Thanks very much, Mayor. I'm going to transition over to the DEP team, but just a couple housekeeping items. There's a Q&A. If there's a question that comes up during the course of the presentation, I don't think that we're going to respond live. And then also at the end, we can open this up for panelists to engage with the administration and the DEP team. But at this time, I'll let Dennis hand it over to you. You can introduce your group, and we'll get into the meat of the conversation this meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Caleb, and good evening, everyone. Great turnout for a web-based meeting. I'm really, I think, to Dawn Zimmer's point, I think we turned on a dime, and in this COVID environment, we just kept up the pace, kept up the meetings when we needed to, and we kept working. I'm Dennis Reinick, Chief of the Bureau of Climate Resilience Design and Engineering. I want to thank Mayor Bala and former Mayor Zimmer for your opening remarks and your continuing support of this project. And I also want to thank the Hoboken City Council. A lot of members are in the audience for their ongoing support. You've been voting with us when we need you. Our project will concentrate on reducing the flood risk from coastal storm surge threats through components including flood walls, barriers, gates, and soft landscaping features, and a stormwater separation feature. This project is an excellent example of federal, state, and local officials working with our community together to tackle challenges caused by climate change and sea level rise. You heard that as a theme from both mayors. Tonight's meeting will focus on the storm sewer separation work, as that's what we're going to be doing first. And John Miller is going to be talking about the project in more detail, but at times you might call it SSM. We shortened up storm sewer separation contract to, we call it SSM for short, informally. So sometimes we might say that. We're just talking about this phase of the project. And what a journey to get to this phase. I was so excited this morning. I was woken up, I was like, I can't wait to start talking about construction. I know it's going to be uncomfortable while we're working, but we're getting started. We've been working together for 5.5 years, working on the feasibility, the design, the record of decision. We've had over 100 stakeholder meetings. Many of you have been part of most of those meetings. This is such an exciting time, and we're just so excited to take our first construction steps together with you, and the DEP team, AECOM, WSP, and our construction contractor, UCC. We're currently expected to begin work in the first week of May, and John's going to tell you a lot more about the schedule as we get into the heart of the meeting. But every project begins with a first step, and this sewer separation contract is our first step. And we'll be concentrating mostly on the slides tonight about the zones in Southeast Hoboken. These work zones are the first ones we'll be working on, so we're going to be concentrating on the first ones out of the box. Because most people will be interested. When we start, where are you starting? So that's where we're focusing. Tonight's presentation will introduce the project team. We're going to talk about the basics of the contract, what it's going to do, the basic schedule, and where we'll be working first. We'll be talking about what we're building, primary construction methods, and we're going to discuss our plans, how to manage pedestrian and vehicle traffic flow in consultation with Hoboken officials as we move along. And most importantly, we want to leave you with information and context on how you can stay informed on our ongoing construction activities. And if you're having a problem, how you can outreach to us and get in contact with us. And I think we're going to hit on this at the end, but we will be having future meetings on the SSM work as it moves into the Northern Hoboken zone later this year. And we will also have update meetings on the primary resist structure contract in the future. Tonight, we're going to be concentrating pretty much exclusively on the sewer contract that we're about to begin together. John, could you maybe put the slide up for the introductions? All right, there we go. Rather than have every one by one just come online and say hello, I'm just going to introduce everybody on the team. You're going to hear from John Miller tonight. He's our SSM construction manager for the department. He's going to be the face of it on the ground. He works for Frank Schwartz, who's the project team manager. You've met him for the last 5 years. He's been at every meeting. And he and I are both, we've been partners in crime for 20 years, and we are so excited to get started. And Alexis Taylor, you all know from, she's our community engagement lead, but does almost everything else too. And I think she's just as thrilled to get started. The construction management firm, we hired who is that? We hired a firm to basically do our oversight of the construction contractor. I couldn't do it all. I couldn't staff it with state workers. So we hired an excellent firm called Berger Hill Joint Venture. And Christopher Corliss is the program manager for the program. Him and I have been working on multi-million-dollar projects for 21 years together. I think we finish each other's sentences, and I'm so glad to have him as a partner to make sure that we're inspecting our construction contractor properly. Erin Percival is new to the group. You might hear from her at the end of the night. She's our community construction liaison. You're going to have her personal phone number and her personal cell phone number and her email address. Alexis is going to give you all that stuff. And if you have a problem, you have a question on the project that's not an emergency basis, you just give her a call. And then Matt Barboni, he couldn't be here tonight, but he's going to be the head inspector. He's the project manager on the ground for construction, and I'm thrilled to have him on the team. The engineering program since feasibility AECOM we brought on board about 3 years ago. Tom Vargo is the senior design construction engineer. He's with us tonight, and Karen Apple, the project manager. They've been fabulous, and I think they've produced a great design for this contract. And then we've awarded the contract to the Underground Utilities Corporation. Richard Gomes, the president of the firm, is on the line, and Tom Corcoran is the senior project manager. It's been really great to work with them in the last couple of months, and I'm excited to get started with them and watch them build a project that we'll be proud of. So with that, I'd like to just get into the meat of the meeting. The introductions and the stories are over, and now we're going to tell you about what we're going to build. And I'd like to hand it over to John Miller, our DP project manager.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. And thank you all for joining us tonight. As many of you may know, the Rehoboth by Design Hudson River project is a flood risk reduction system that we're going to be implementing through 2 separate contracts. And, you know, the primary contract for this system will be the resist alignment, or the resist structure contract. And it will involve construction of over 9,000 linear feet of flood wall, floodgates, and levee structures that will provide a greater level of protection for the municipalities in the project area from coastal storms similar to Superstorm Sandy. Now, during Superstorm Sandy, I'm sure many of you remember the primary breach points occurred in the north via Weehawken Cove, shown here, and in the south through the New Jersey Transit Terminal and the transit yard. The structure will be constructed in both the north and south zone, shown in this pink line here, with the idea that it will cut off those breach points and protect the city from future coastal flooding. Today, though, as Dennis has said, we're really here to talk to you about the first contract that will be constructed as part of this project. That's the Sewer System Modification Contract, or the SSM for short. This is the smaller of 2 contracts, but it's critical to ensuring the resist system can function properly. And essentially what it does is it involves separating portions of the existing combined sewer system in the city and putting them into separate stormwater and sanitary lines. And you can see the 2 locations shown in yellow here, one in the north just outside of the line of protection, and one in the south also just outside the line of protection. So real quick, you might be wondering why this SSM is so critical to the entire resist component. As you can see, the location of the resist alignment is away from the Hudson River, the shoreline here. And what that does is it results in portions of the combined system being outside the line of protection. And the exterior inlets, manholes on the wet side will be subject to inundation by storm surge and also tidal flooding, which could allow water to breach the line of protection by traveling through the system, under the wall, and at times even generating sewer backups, flooding the existing North Hudson Sewerage Authority wastewater treatment plant, as well as portions of the city on the interior or dry side of the resist structure. So you can really understand why it's so important. Moving on, I just want to dive a bit deeper and reorient everyone. As stated, construction of the SSM will be occurring in both North Hoboken work area and a South Hoboken work area. And today we're going to be focusing on the south area shown here. You can see the drainage areas in blue and some of the manholes and inlets that we'll be removing and sealing, represented by these yellow dots. So let's start by touching on some of the basics pertaining to this south work area. The work in the south area will begin in May of this year, and it's expected to run through September, October. On the left, you'll see an aerial map of the work with colors to indicate the approximate schedule for these work zones. As you can see, the work will begin in May at this downstream structure, and the contractor will be working upstream or uphill from the outfall structure here on Sinatra Drive. Work in May and June will run up Newark Street in this pink zone right here and turn southward on River Street. And then as we get into June and July, we expect to be turning onto Hudson Place and working up to Hudson Street before turning toward Observer Highway. The contractor will finish their work on the corner of Observer and Hudson Street in July or August. That's shown here in that light green. And then you see another light green area where he'll come back to Newark Street to complete the stretch from Hudson to River Street. The final work areas in August and September here in the purple, you can see we'll actually be completing the connection of this large southern system to the existing outfall. And then we'll also be touching a few areas, the intersection of 2nd and River Street here in orange, and the intersection of River and 3rd Street in September and October. You also notice that there's various red and green dots throughout the project area. You can see some here on River Street that aren't in those major work zones. But what those are going to be are manhole sealing. So we'll be taking existing manholes, making sure they're watertight so that no water can get into those manholes and re-enter the system once this new stormwater system is up and running. So moving on to the broader scope of construction. The scope of the construction in the south will comprise of laying over 2,000 linear feet of pipe, shown as these yellow lines. We'll be installing new manholes and catch basins, installing water quality control units to remove suspended solids from the stormwater. And we'll also be sealing and waterproofing existing manholes, as I said. You'll notice on the right here in this figure, we're showing day and night work. As we've discussed, there is going to be some overnight work taking place. That's shown here in this figure in pink, and the day work shown in blue. And I'm going to really touch on the day and night work on this next figure here so that you can get an idea of what we're really talking about. So again, you can see that the day work is shown in blue, the night work shown in pink. A majority of the work is overnight work. It'll be occurring from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. The decision to perform overnight work, it was made in consultation with really a large task force of representatives of the city. It was discussions with Hoboken City Engineer, the City Transportation Department, the Police Department, Fire Department, Office of Emergency Management, and even discussions with New Jersey Transit determined that many of these work zones would be best suited to overnight work, with this being such a large hub for transportation and densely packed urban environment. It will create a safer work zone, reduce and minimize conflicts with pedestrians and private vehicles, as well as buses and cyclists. And construction during the AM or PM rush would just likely cause significant negative impacts and be too disruptive for the city. There are some stretches, as I said, along River Street from Newark to Hudson Place right here, and Newark Street from Hudson Street to River Street, where the day work is proposed to occur. And we're going to be actively coordinating with the city and with Hoboken Police Department to ensure that the work hours for each work zone are deemed appropriate for wherever we're going to be working and the type of work that we'll be doing. Moving on to the first 1 to 2 months of work, I want to zoom in a little bit. So during the first 1 to 2 months of work will be primarily along Newark Street and River Street. You can see again, we have overnight work shown in blue, day work shown in yellow. I should note that some of the initial work throughout all of the work zones will be a test pitting program. This is used to confirm actual locations of existing utilities. And we will be working with Hoboken Police Department to determine if some of this test pitting work would be less disruptive during the day, as it will involve smaller work areas and smaller crews, and will likely pose a lesser risk of disruption to traffic and pedestrian flow. Now, this figure shows exactly where we're starting. I'll put my mouse on it. Hopefully you can see. There's this outfall structure right here on Sinatra Drive in Newark that we'll be tying into. And the contractor will be starting at this downstream structure right here. It's a circle with a square in it. It's right by the post office driveway on Newark Street. This is one of the largest water quality control units in the project. So I will let you know that you can expect to see some heavier equipment during this process. We will be using a crane during installation, and we're actively working with the city engineer to ensure the proper permits are obtained and precautions taken during this crane work. As the contractor proceeds upstream along Newark, they'll be laying pipe shown by these thin lines here and installing some new manholes and catch basins. You can see a manhole here, a new catch basin here, just as an example. This work will require some noise generating activities. There may be saw cutting, jackhammering, and soil removal and replacement. We'll be using large trucks. This is all typical for this type of roadway excavation. There will also be dewatering pumping activities occurring to maintain a dry and stable trench during the excavations. In some of these larger excavations, such as this large water quality control unit right here that I was showing you, it is such a large structure and it's also at a low elevation. So sheeting may be used to cut off groundwater intrusion to the excavated area, which also, as you're driving that sheeting into the ground, will generate some noise. But we are prepared to do what it takes to mitigate these quality of life disruptions as much as possible. So work will be performed within the permissible noise and vibration levels, and it will be consistently monitored. We can commit to that. We will have our construction management firm there making sure it's done. The contractor will be submitting plans for noise, dust, and vibration control and monitoring these throughout the work. These plans will require the contractor to provide site drawings showing locations for monitoring instruments and identifying noise-sensitive locations, which I'm sure if you live in the area, that's an important step that you like to hear that we're doing. Noise monitoring is required to be conducted during all construction activities and vibration monitoring during all vibration-inducing construction activities. And that includes, but is not limited to, excavation, sheeting installation, and the operation of heavy equipment. In the event that noise, vibration, or dust levels exceed acceptable limits, the contractor will be obligated to advise the construction manager immediately, and we will take the appropriate action. Moving on, another large quality of life issue that I'm sure everyone's interested in is the maintenance and protection of traffic and pedestrian flow. So as far as vehicular and pedestrian traffic is concerned, the contractor will be adhering to detailed maintenance and protection of traffic measures that have been coordinated with the police department. There will be periodic lane shifts and or lane closures, but in most instances, these lane closures are going to be limited to half the roadway or a single lane or direction within the roadway. As you can see in this figure, detours will be in place. For instance, you can see the roadway closure here along Newark Street where I had zoomed in before. When the westbound traffic on Newark is restricted, we will have a detour taking you northbound on Sinatra, able to turn left on 2nd Street, and then proceed with your route down River Street. This is just an example, but we have these detour plans for each work zone to ensure that the flow of traffic proceeds accordingly. The police department and Office of Emergency Management will be assisting with traffic flow as well for any closures. We'll have police on site and we'll be ensuring that access to both the PATH and Hoboken Terminal, the PATH train and Hoboken Terminal are maintained at all times for commuters. I know that's a big point of concern for many of the people living in the city. Regarding parking, there will be no parking permitted within the work areas, but we will be actively working with Hector Mojica, the chief parking officer, to ensure that the public is given sufficient notice of these temporary no parking areas prior to implementation and getting those signs down as soon as the work is complete so that you can have your parking restored. So that covers most of this South Hoboken SSM work I wanted to share with you today. But I do just want to briefly provide you an update on where we sit with the larger Resist and Cove Park contract. We will be, in the coming month or two, be performing some subsurface utility exploration work. This is just to verify existing utilities, the location, and ensure that there are no conflicts outstanding with the design. The design will be complete later this spring of 2021. And we do have some really key critical milestones that we want to hit in September of this year. So we want to establish the operation and maintenance responsibilities. We will be completing the easement acquisition for the entire resist structure alignment. And we hope to obtain the extension of the federally mandated expenditure deadline that's associated with the HUD funds funding this project. We'll be awarding the contract in late 2021, so this year, and we expect this contract to be completed in late summer of 2025. I do want to leave you with Alexis Taylor, just giving her a chance to share with you how you can stay informed on the construction activities upcoming and ways to keep in the loop about what we'll be doing over these next few months in your area.
Thanks, John. So I do want to let our attendees know we provided a lot of details in these slides. The slides will be available on our website. We'll post them tomorrow. So if you want to take some more time to go through the slides, you can feel free. We'll tell you how to send questions or if you have additional inquiries based on your review of the slides. That first link up there is our website. All the information from tonight will be up on our website. What is also there is a link to sign up to receive weekly community construction advisories. So each week we will provide the community with the most up-to-date information about where we will be working and when. And those will be issued by DEP, but we also will be supplying that same information to the city of Hoboken. So for those of you that already subscribe to the Quality of Life Nixle announcements, that will also be a place where you'll receive information on the latest construction information. In addition to that, we wanted to provide multiple channels. So we will also be updating a live map that Hoboken currently uses. We've provided the link there to maps.populous. And I'll put all these links in the chat as soon as I'm done explaining them as well. So if you want to go ahead and click on them. But this live map will have, we'll be updating it as information comes in about road closures. And it's something that the city of Hoboken is already using. So we're very happy that DEP can plug into that and provide our closure information in that one-stop location. And then finally, I'm very pleased to introduce our community construction liaison. And I'm going to ask Erin just to turn on her camera so that you can go ahead and put a face with a name. Erin will be helping me field public inquiries. We've gone ahead and set up a 1-800 number where you can call with any concerns or questions about the future work. And we also have an email address that is written there that will be entirely dedicated to answering any inquiries during construction. So we're very lucky to have Erin on board. We're very lucky to have someone who's dedicated just to kind of liaising with the community and providing additional information as needed. So we want to make sure that people have her information, and also, again, we'll be posting all of this on our website. So when you do need to get in touch with us, you'll know how. And with that, I'm going to add some of these links into the chat, but I think we want to open it up to a Q&A, and I'm just going to ask Caleb to come back and help moderate that.
Yeah, so I think that there should be a feature by the folks that are still watching. If you raise your hand, I can allow you to talk. And so we'll try this out with Jim Doyle.
Okay, thank you, Caleb. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I would be first.
Yeah, you hit the buzzer, so your
Okay.
time is now, Jim.
I have a very kind of specific question. The combined sewer outfalls will this work actually separate out the two, the combined sewers into the more appropriate sanitary sewers being segregated from the stormwater sewers? So we'll be achieving some of those benefits coincident with this work, or is this just sort of what is the work underground? Is it just like putting a backstop on it so that the water cannot come in?
I think that I can answer that. So this work will help with reaching long-term control plan issues. So it's separating out stormwater from our CSO, and essentially the sewer system will stay in place, and DEP is building a new stormwater management system that will not interact with that combined sewer system.
Great. So we're really killing two birds, or we're improving two issues with one project in the sense. With
that's the intent. Yeah.
The Clean Water Act obligations. Thank you. And the other question I had, which is just maybe it's for Mr. Miller, the sheet piling that you're putting in right near the post office, is that going to remain permanently as a barrier to the groundwater flow, or is that going to be removed after the construction is complete of whatever it is you're constructing?
John, I don't think we've gotten that far with the contractor in his planning phase to answer that question, but I don't think, Frank, you had any plans to leave things in the ground, correct?
That wasn't
on the drawings.
That wasn't the intent. But again, it's like if the contractor determines that it would be feasible to leave it and he wants to, I don't think we would tell him he couldn't. But it wasn't the plan.
Okay, no, I wasn't suggesting one approach or the other was better. I just was curious. So,
and it's really about water infiltration and managing it. So it's really going to be up to the contractor how he chooses to control it there. We just think he's going to have to look at a whole bunch of options when working in that spot.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. It's a great question.
I'm going to go over to, we have two other attendees that have raised their hand, and I'm going to go over now to Councilwoman Fisher. I think that you can, yep.
Awesome. First, I just want to thank everyone for basically all the efforts. I'm really, really excited that this project is starting, and I just know all the work that went in over the last 6 years from, the very beginning. So I'm just thrilled that we're starting. The question I have is, what do you anticipate that the disruption or impact to be for the businesses in this area, and what plans, if any, do you have to help advertise or something for them? I had a sidebar with Caleb on this, but I figured I would ask the DEP team. And then the second question is, I noticed where you're putting this major sewage, I think outfall, whatever you called it, right at the corner of Newark and Sinatra. And I'm mindful that that is adjacent to the proposed Hilton Hotel project. And is that something that has been shared with the Hilton as they, put their plans together for development on that site? Will it have any impact on them? And if yes, no, or whatever, just wanted to throw that out there and ask the question.
So I can speak to the first question. We will be maintaining access to businesses along the work areas. We're also taking inventory of any streeteries or parklets along the roadways. I don't think at this time any in the south area have to be moved, but if that is the case, we're going to be providing them ample notice that will be the case. I know that's sort of a touchy issue during COVID, but as we will with everything in this project, we'll be making sure to provide, a long timeline ahead of when we're entering the work zone, details to all the business owners in that area through our Nixle pushes or whatever it may be.
If we could, I happen to be the liaison for the Hoboken Business Alliance, which is new this year, but I'd love to, set up a meeting with whoever's appropriate with the appropriate people from the HBA to just talk about even what the HBA can do, things like open for business, this restaurant's still open, detour, walk this way to get to this business. So we can avoid maybe some of what happened with our Washington Street project, where we originally had the plans to do stuff like that and we just didn't. So whatever we can do, especially given the pandemic, to kind of help them and guide people to their stores while this is happening would be awesome.
Yeah, Councilman, I'd be happy to coordinate that conversation with HBA.
Thanks, Caleb.
The DEP team. I will also say that I know that we've been working to identify kind of the ground floor or access related conflicts in the work zones, and DEP has started dialogue and is in conversation with the post office about making sure that there's not an interruption to operations, and that they have scheduled a meeting with the daycare on Newark. I'm not sure if you guys have already spoken to them, but they've been connected and had a dialogue, which are the two most impacted, I think, from this beginning.
Great. In the Hilton, anyone?
I have not reached out to the Hilton, but I can do that.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Let's go to Mr. Carey. Can you hear us okay? Can you speak?
Yeah, hi.
One more time, John.
Am I on?
You are now.
Okay, I don't know if, well, no COVID. I don't know. You guys don't see me. Thanks to everybody's efforts, over these last couple of years, particularly in this last year where a lot of us haven't seen each other or haven't been in town. And I think we're in a great place. It's nice to know that, a month and a half from now, we'll have a shovel in the ground. And that's great news. And then obviously we're starting on something that's going to be, going on for a couple of years. I think it's, Caleb, this goes to some other conversations we've all had. I think it's most important to keep the public informed. I know that there's stuff that's going on that front. I think something that would be most helpful is that we remind people, not just verbally, but also visually, just how bad it was at the height of the storm and how it impacted our city. And some of this goes to things like high water mark. We've talked about doing that before. Unlike some cities, some communities, we didn't have buildings particularly get totally knocked down. And that's a bit of an anomaly in a flood situation. There were places down at the shore. We all know the situation where someone's house that we're familiar with got washed out into Barnegat Bay. But I think if you walk down right where they're going to start digging, the water was 10 feet high, maybe. Do people actually remember that? Do they know that it was up to, a windowsill level or higher? And I think marks and signs and maybe the ability to sit there somehow with your phone to link into some video footage or something to see what it's there. I think this is a good proactive way to present the project ahead of time, as opposed to after the fact where people are wondering what the hell is going on, that they remember just how bad it was. And particularly in our community that's very dynamic and a lot of change. What happened back, it'll be 8.5 years ago now. A lot of it's forgotten. So I hope we're thinking along those lines. And, it seems like I'm sure a lot of this stuff's already been addressed. So thank you.
Thanks, John. I'm going to go to Christy. Just raise your hand, and Francesco and Susan, I'm trying to answer your questions. And any of the NJDEP folks, if you want to chime in, there's some questions that are popping up in the Q&As right now.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, how are you? I'm Christy Pasquoli. I am the owner and director of Hoboken Middle School, which happens to be right at ground zero of where you guys are going to be starting everything. I'm in a unique situation because we did survive Sandy. So speaking to the point that the last speaker made, we were completely wiped out by Sandy and had a lot of damage done to our space. We're literally located right on the corner of Newark and Sinatra, across the street from the post office loading dock. And we occupy the space that's right along the river. So we had quite the experience with Sandy. We were closed down for quite some time from that. So we definitely remember everything that happened. And while, you know, this is a little bit of a concern for us, given our attempted rebound from the COVID closure and how business has been going since then, I just wanted to say thank you so much for reaching out to us and taking the initiative to prepare us and work with us. It was even offered to help me craft a letter to send out to our families to explain what was going on in the project. And I think that communication is really key here. And I know that we're gonna hopefully plan to meet at some point on the site so I can show everybody where we enter and exit from in our building, where our teachers enter and exit from with the kids, where our parents drop off, whether it's on foot or by car. So I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the reach out. And I know Caleb, that you, Alexis, had mentioned that you had kind of facilitated that. And I just wanted to say thank you. And we're looking forward to working with you guys and not having that type of flooding happen again. So if it takes a couple of years to ensure that that's going to happen, then we're completely on board and we will help and, you know, collaborate however you guys need to. So thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
Thanks, Christy.
You're welcome. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Christy.
I'm going to go to Francesco. Francesco, I apologize. I'd been trying to talk to you, but I clicked the wrong button. So,
I have just a couple of quick questions, actually. So we talked about noise and mitigation, possibly mitigation actions, but we really didn't understand what these mitigation actions were going to be. And also, what level of noise can we expect? And one other question is, I am an owner and resident at 77 River. And, I want to understand if we will have continuous access by car to our property or not. As you know, we don't have a garage. And, our garage, we all rely on municipal garages that are blocks away. So just to understand.
I think that I will let DEP talk to those, and I will fill in if John doesn't have the answers, because I think I think that they can answer those questions for you.
Yeah, so as for noise, actually, John, maybe you can go back to the slide. Our contractor, by way of the contract, is required to meet all state and local municipal noise ordinances. It's not on there, but it will be monitored to make sure that we are not exceeding the noise range that is established by local Hoboken ordinance.
I think it's 65 decibels, which is like heavy daytime traffic in an urban area. That would be for the overnight work. It's 65 decibels, if I remember the spec correctly, John, for overnight work.
And I just want to add the construction management firm will have boots on the ground at every work area when work's being performed, and they'll also be keeping an eye on these noise levels, vibration levels, and they'll be responsible for making sure that we're in compliance. And also, if they need to revise their methods or something like that on a case-by-case basis, that's how it will be approached. So I hope that can help alleviate some of your concerns as well.
And vehicle access to their property, John?
I believe it will be maintained. I can't say for sure, but I would expect so.
So as the best that I know it, on Hudson Place, there is not planned construction activities that are east of river. So I think that at that area, yes. On River in front of the building, it will be daytime lane closures. So there may be a portion of the day where on that block face, you'll not be able to pull a vehicle up in front of the building. And then for the overnight work, there will be closures and detours on Newark Street east of River for periodically. So I don't think that you will always be able to get a vehicle to the property on one of those three sides, but two of the three sides of the building should be open almost all the time for vehicle access. Is that helpful? Looks like you got me muted. I'm going to ask you to unmute, Francesco.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And what I was going to say is that my email is, if you want to write it down, C Stratton, CSTRATTON at HobokenNJ.gov. And I got included on a thread with your building with Councilman DeFusco. So you can send me an email with questions anytime after this as well. I'm happy to help try to get the project details out there.
Can you please repeat the C Stratton at what?
HobokenNJ.gov.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Carter, I'm going to you now.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Kellen, for the chance to ask a question. I just want to echo some of the positive vibes and some of the positive thoughts I've heard from before, because I think one of the landmarks accomplishments of what you all professionals have put together so far is you've been able to tie together implementing the Rebuild by Design project with the long-term control plan project of North Hudson Sewage Authority. You know, for those who don't know, you know, the mayor mentioned $230 million going into Rebuild by Design. The long-term control plan by the Sewage Authority is, I think, a close to $300 million project. The last number I saw includes a big expansion of the Adams Street wastewater treatment plant and a bunch of local improvements. So thanks for living up to that vision of integrated infrastructure when this project was first conceived of a few years ago. 10, I don't know. Here we are. Questions about air quality. You know, one of the things that CAG commented on years ago was we hope that as the project moved forward into construction, the state, the contractor, et cetera, could look at the cleanest construction equipment available, and whether that's low sulfur diesel, whether that's tier 2 or tier 3 or tier 4 engines, the way California has higher air quality standards for their heavy equipment. Is there any requirement or expectation or plan by the contractor to do anything better in terms of air quality and performance of the equipment based on the heavily urbanized area and immediate vicinity of small developing lungs, you know, right on the other side of the door from where they'll be digging?
So the contractor is really responsible for complying with all the federal, state, and local regulations. As I said, there will be air quality monitoring in place, including when appropriate, perimeter air quality monitoring downwind. So that is what I can tell you. We will be monitoring it, and he has to comply with the federal, state, and local regulations during the work.
That's a good answer. Honestly, as someone who breathes all this stuff, walking around town, whatever, it's I hope we can come up with some creative solutions or better things to do in terms of performance. I also wonder if there's anything the project can do to help improve or protect indoor air quality, whether by providing filtration equipment or other things that can be done in adjacent buildings, in adjacent businesses to help protect the indoor air quality, even if all the windows and doors have to stay shut. Can you talk about if anything like that is possible?
I don't believe that's that's part of our plan, but it's a good thought, and it's something we can take back and think about it with the team.
Thank you. Yeah, I think all the issues here, as the woman from the daycare center pointed out, it's going to be the same issues when you get up to Cove Park at the north end, and there's schools right across the street and people right inside the window. So I think the whole COVID era has made us all more appreciative of indoor air quality. So I hope there's still time to, take some progressive steps, whatever they might be, to help keep our air as clean as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft.
Thanks, Carter. Susan Kimmelman had a question in the Q&A that I thought it was better to discuss with the group, and it was about concerns with vibrations and foundations. John, can you walk through some of the requirements for the contractor to, whether it's crack monitoring or vibration monitoring, what are there particular concerns with this project? Is there anything you turned up with the buildings in the area? How will you be handling that? Does it relate? Is there a difference between historic structures and new structures? Just a couple of.
Yeah, so it's funny you bring up the historic structures. So there, as part of this project, we entered into a programmatic agreement concerned with protection of historic and cultural resources, both above and below ground. And so as part of our historic resource construction protection plan, we have special vibration limits in place to ensure that these, Hoboken has such a great history of architecture, and to ensure that these areas are protected even during this type of construction was very important to that. And that plan has been reviewed by the State Historic Preservation Office and inserted into the contract. So we're very proud of that. As far as vibration level limits, I don't have exact values for you, but we will be doing, checking for cracks. We'll be doing vibration monitoring during any vibration inducing construction activities. And, our construction manager will be immediately notified if they exceed those levels. And the owner, DEP, and the engineer will also be notified, and we'll revise our operations to reduce vibrations, whatever the new procedure might be. And hopefully we can get any concerns you have with vibration taken care of through that process.
If there's anything going on a daily basis, if there's a concern that they're identified, where if someone's in the community has an issue with that, they would go to speak to Aaron and send a note to RBD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea is any non-emergency inquiries can go to Aaron, and we'll be able to get back to you very quickly. We'll be monitoring. A number of us will receive those emails if it goes to RBDH inquiries. So we'll be able to get you an answer. Obviously, if it's an emergency situation, we recommend that you dial the police but any non-emergency communications.
Okay. Susan, if that doesn't answer your question, I would say just raise your hand again and we can discuss it more. I'm going to go over to Vito and allow to talk.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, Vito, yes.
Hi, Caleb. Thank you for taking my question, and thank you for this information. And as somebody who's gone through Sandy, I do appreciate what is happening here and the efforts that are being taken. I, like Susan and Francesco, are from 77 River Street. The property is located between Newark and Hudson Place on River Street, so really kind of right in the center of this. And we have 26 residential units in that building, 26 families. There's children and there's seniors and others, some of which will be sleeping maybe within 50 feet of this work. So I reiterate the comments about noise mitigation, dust, air pollution, and access, because although this is a very important project, and I don't think anybody disputes that, the residents at 77 River Street will bear this burden pretty heavily. And, so, we just want to reiterate that and hope that there'll be close contact throughout this project to make sure that it's not as hard as it has to be. But one other specific question was just as a clarification, if you could also speak to it. It looked like there was that right in front of River Street between Hudson Place and Newark would be daytime work. And I just want to confirm that. And the other question I had was, are there any plans to disrupt the sidewalks in this area between Hudson Place and Newark on River Street?
So the answer to your latter question is yes, there are some sidewalk cuts and pipe runs that conflict with the sidewalk on the east side of River Street. The genesis of this conversation was the overnight work hours were permitted by the council at the last city council meeting, and in working with DEP, they had flagged to us a schedule that said we might be starting as early as April. So we thought that there was a sense of urgency in getting that information in front of the council and hosting this meeting specifically to discuss the concerns of 77 River and inform the larger community about what the work has been going on with Regal by Design. But it was talked about at the beginning, but I want to just reinforce that construction activities are not proposed to start until the first week of May now. The schedule shifted a little bit because of some of the permits the contractor needs to provide. So I would make myself available again to your building to make sure that we've been really clear about what we need to address and what's occurring in and around 77 River, including the difference between the daytime and nighttime, maybe going in a little bit more detail with the scope of work that's occurring in this area.
Hello?
Vito, I think that we might have lost your audio.
Can you hear me?
Now I can, yeah.
Okay, so so specifically on the sidewalk issue, then, if the sidewalk will be disrupted, how will access be granted to the building? Will it be a plywood
I don't think
ramp
that,
or
I don't
something?
think that the sidewalk disturbance is going to be adjacent to the building. It's going to be on the curb edge, immediately adjacent to the curb edge, those types of areas. There's not I don't believe that there's a run of pipe where we're going to lose access to any access to the building. John, you can correct me if I'm
Right,
wrong.
and installing of inlets takes place and catch basins takes place on the curb line as well. So
Yeah. So I don't believe that there's going to be a conflict, but we will go back and make sure there's not.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Susan, I see that you raised your hand again. I'm going to click you on here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you guys for doing this tonight. And I want to reiterate what Vito said. You know, we have a lot of questions and concerns, but it's not because we don't understand the importance of this project. We know it has to happen. We just want to know what to prepare ourselves for. I also have some concerns about the overnight work on Hudson, and I have no idea how loud 65 decibels are. I just know that one of the sleeping quarters in our apartment is right on the corner of River and Hudson Place. So I want to know what to expect. Like, what is 65 decibels? How loud is that going to be for us here?
So if you're on the corner of River and Hudson Place, which is the building will physically be a buffer. So the corner of River.
No, River and Hudson, like, right? Is that not the right street that I'm saying? Yeah, River and Hudson Place. Go to the left a little bit. Nope, other way. Keep going towards the PATH station. I'm at 77 River.
You need to move your cursor. Yeah,
That's 77 River, and that is that corner right there, which is the south corner. So there's going to be construction night and day. I get it, but I like I said, at night I need to know: are we going to be able to sleep here? Are we going to have to move out? How loud is that?
So I just Googled it. A normal conversation is 50 to 65 decibels, and a vacuum cleaner or a hairdryer is 70 decibels. And I think the overnight noise limit is 65 decibels, but it's still going to be a construction site. And we'll have staff there, DEP will have staff there to monitor, how noisy it is and when those activities are occurring. I don't have a clear answer for you.
Okay, am I? So the other question that I have is some of the questions I put in here about the vibration. I don't know if it's unfounded to think about that, but if there's damage to our building, are we going to have any kind of recourse for that? Is there anything in this plan for that? Or are we kind of on our own in having to repair our
You're
building?
definitely not on your own, and there's protections in the contracts with the DEP and the contractor, as well as the city is issuing permits for this project. There's protections through bonding. There will not be an expense that's encumbered if there's damage that occurs from this project to your building.
Okay. And can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
And just going back to the noise level for a second, then I'm done. When you say 65 decibels at how much distance? I wouldn't be able to sleep if there was a vacuum cleaner running next to my head, but if it's down the street, not a big deal. What's the ordinance on that?
What I could do is I could send, there's actually the specification that talks about inside a building, outside a building, at street level, the maximum threshold allowed. It could and you can do some research to give you context, but I'm not sure if I can accurately answer that question.
Okay.
There are specific requirements for the contractor to meet with the contract for overnight work based on the City of Hoboken's code and their contract with NJDEP.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Susan.
And I'm going to go to Carolyn.
Thank you. I'm another 77 River Street resident. And my question is, I just wanted to confirm, it looked in the beginning like our building will be affected by construction noise and various issues in May and June 2021. Is that correct? Or will there be work outside of that time? What are we talking about? So in terms of how we are affected, it looks like October 2021.
The scope of work that's immediately adjacent to 77 River will be undertaken in May and June. And depending on the pace of the construction, that's what the DEP has scheduled right now.
And then in later in June, July, we will be, turning on to Hudson Place and coming up toward Hudson Street, which is a little bit close to 77 River Street. So that's when you can expect the work to happen. And another thing, just to clarify, there will be a smaller crew sealing manholes throughout these streets, but those are much more compact and not, the work is not nearly as noisy. So it should be much less disruptive.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, it'll start in May and June, but it shouldn't be too bad, even though it's close by. And then as it gets a little farther away, it will become more intense and more likely to be disruptive in, say, June, July. Am I understanding that correctly?
I'm sorry if I misspoke. I think it would be fairly consistent, the type of work coming through.
Okay.
I was saying that the manhole sealing, which is a separate crew and much more compact work areas, maybe less disruptive, but that will be happening with a separate crew throughout the streets of the work area.
So we're talking like May through July will be the most, will most likely to be disruptive, if any.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Karen, I think that I had received an email from you, and I think you may have sent an email, but I had gotten something from Mayor Bala. And again, my email is cstratton, CSTRATTON @HobokenNJ.gov, and anyone from the building can reach out at any time. I'll do the best I can to
Thank you.
be responsive.
Appreciate it. We just want you to know there's people sleeping and also, you know, from May to July, that's going to be day and night. So like I work at home. I don't know if my unit will be affected. It's not clear to me because I'm
John,
aware.
can you go to the slide that breaks out the different day and night time construction areas? Maybe the next one. You're on mute right now, John, but Carolyn, so the run from River to Sinatra on Newark is overnight, and then the run from you know, River from Hudson Place to Newark is during the daytime. So those two work areas won't occur simultaneously. So hopefully there's transition or relief during that time.
Just to echo my fellow tenants, not tenants, owner, residents, tenants, thank you for doing this. It is much needed. I was here during Sandy. It's very tricky. So we really appreciate your efforts to work with us and tell us what's going on and just do the work that's much needed.
Thank you very much.
Carolyn, I think just Alexis, you'll probably hit on this more than I could. Why don't you talk about the outreach that every week we're going to be updating the schedule, right? This is the best we know today.
Yeah, so communication is going to be key, and if or as any schedule information becomes available, we will be sharing it weekly. I did just want to reiterate, so it won't be 24 hours of construction, even though I know we're saying daytime construction, but it's not that you'll be surrounded 24 hours by construction. It's that there is a daytime zone along River Street and a nighttime zone, but those will be sequenced.
And just to add to that point a little more, if anyone on this call wants to get those construction updates on a more, on a weekly basis, we send that out via Nixle. You can sign up for the city's Nixle, and this project will have schedule, work hours, points of contact, areas of operation, and that will get updated weekly in our construction email that goes out. And I think on the last side, you'll be able to see the city is working with HPD to populate a map about detours and lane closures. We'll be updating that on a weekly basis as well to try and get as much information as we can out to the community. Caroline, I apologize. I think I muted you by accident.
It's okay. Thank you. You answered my questions.
So Caleb, is there going to be a subgroup of Nixles, or that people can sign up for, or will the entire city be getting all of these? Which I guess makes sense.
It will go out as the part of the whole. Every Friday we do a construction update. Councilwoman Giattino, you want to add something?
Yeah, okay. It's funny because Councilman Doyle sort of just asked started to ask what I was going to ask, but is there a way someone can sign up specifically just to get like a text regarding this or an email regarding the updates?
Well, I know that Alexis manages a listserv that is, it's like a Rebuild by Design listserv that we can.
Yeah.
I think
and that will be, not only will it contain the same information that you're getting as the weekly quality of life Nixle, but that listserv will be where we make any special announcements. So when we are planning a similar meeting before we start construction on the north end, we will be sending it out to those subscribers. But the idea is to both use the existing channels that Hoboken is familiar with. So those are the weekly quality of life. But if there are changes or anything else, we can send out those to our listserv of people who sign out. We can send it. You don't have to wait for the weekly. We could send something out more frequently if there's a known change.
And is that an email or a text or both?
It's an email, and there is the ability to sign up for text, but for the most part, we send it as an email.
Great. No, I didn't want it to get lost in like a weekly Nixle for people that are specifically looking for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We got one more attendee, Alan Not allowed to talk. Did that work, Alan?
Is that the water boiling over here?
That's not my water boiling. There. Starting over then. Thank you, Caleb, and Mayor Bala, Mayor Zimmer. Thank you for getting us started on this and continuing this, and every member of City Council and everybody who's a policymaker, a practitioner, public official. This is really very exciting. Having lived through Sandy, I'm definitely happy to see all of this begin. And Mayor Bala mentioned, more than $250,000, $230 million to this project. And Carter, you've talked about, Carter Craft talks about 300 million plus for a long-term control plan for sewer. So just to put this project in that context, I didn't see the amount for underground utilities. So what's the contract amount for this portion of this very exciting project?
John, I believe you can answer that.
So yeah, the construction cost for this contract came in at just over $5.2 million.
And then that's added to the really good design work and communities and all the work.
Right, and we, in addition to those costs, Alan, in addition to those costs would be, obviously, I have the oversight of the construction and some engineering support for change conditions. But that, I think John just posted just the base construction contract, but I have elements, you saw the staff, to make sure that we're doing it right.
Right. So, right, definitely. So what was that total then?
I don't have that specific. It'll be as an as needed cost basis. I have estimates, but it'll be really as much as we need to spend to make sure we do it right.
No, I'm talking about past expenditures for the design that went back in 2014 with OMA. And
that's longer. That's a longer discussion, Alan, than we can do tonight. I think maybe in the next outreach we do on resist, I'll address that.
Okay, so just following up on John's slide 11, I think it was. It's it's the one we're talking about the next steps. And September 2021, one of the three critical milestones is to obtain an extension of the federally mandated expenditure deadline. Can you just put a little more information out about that?
Actually, yes. Alexis and I were on a call today with, I think you've met him, Dan Kelly from the governor's office, and he's leading with Sam Viavatni from DCA, the outreach with our legislative team from New Jersey to make sure that we have a vehicle to get the extension we require. Just backing up a little bit, last fall, we did get a 1-year extension from having to complete the job by September 2022. They added a year through the federal legislation, as you know, Alan, to September 2023. But our calendar requires us to get, we asked for 3 years. They only gave us 1, and they only gave all the RBDs 1. What we propose and continue to push for through our senators and through our state legislatures, and a lot of the RBDs are continuing to push to get the additional 2 years that we requested in a next federal vehicle. I don't know what that law will be that we will try and hitch a ride on, but Alexis, does that kind of summarize it? The idea is.
Yeah, that's correct. And this project is a priority of the state and the governor and of our senators and representatives in DC. So they are well aware of our need for the additional 2 years.
And Alan, I just think we were not alone, that the 1-year extension, while nice, I don't think solved a lot of the same problems that all the RBDs were experiencing with the restrictive timeline.
So 2 more years, we're back to John's slide, the contract completion. I think you said, John, late summer of 2025. So an additional 2 years would be a safe harbor.
That would get me there. Right.
Yep.
So last year was the Appropriations Act. So I guess that could be a vehicle this year, right? Watson Coleman.
I don't know what vehicle it is. I would hate to speak to it. I just want the extension. And I think all of us on this call just want it done, crossed off so we can move forward.
So are you able to spend the HUD funding now? I mean, is that is it state money that's paying for these costs to date and then it gets reimbursed by HUD later, or is the HUD money all in place?
I have the entire $230 million pulled down. It's all in state accounts and I'm spending HUD money.
So if there's any problem that arises where we don't get the extension,
that'll be a discussion for another day, but I'm the work that we're doing now is totally eligible for reimbursement and we're proceeding.
So they won't do any clawback if the project wouldn't proceed, for instance, right?
The work that we're doing now is not subject to clawback as under my analysis.
Okay.
To anybody to understand what Alan's talking about, we're kind of talking inside baseball. Clawback means where the federal government would ask for their money back. The work that we're doing on the SSM contract is money that stands on its own merit.
Thanks for outlining that. Appreciate the comments, Alan.
Was I clear enough, Caleb? I know I went into shorthand with Alan. Alan and I have conversations all the time.
Yeah, I mean, this is plan A. And we're gonna do the best we can with the time we have.
So is there some advocacy that can be done by, community members to help move this forward with our legislators? With their senators and our members of Congress?
Senator Booker, Senator Menendez, Series, we've done the work. They know where the need is. If that's something that you want to take on, I don't think that it would hurt. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna just, Dennis, if you don't mind, just wrap this up. So there's a couple ways for folks to grab information about this project, schedules, dates. The first is the DEP website that's on the screen right now. The second is going to be subscribing to the city's Nixle account. We will probably be posting information on Facebook about the project. And then my email address is cstratton@hobokenNJ.gov. That's CSTRATTON@hobokenNJ.gov. And I've been working with the DEP group for a number of years. And before we close, I just want to say thank you to a number of council members that joined the call. There's a big group of the AECOM team, former Mayor Zimmer. I briefly introduced, and if Olga wants to wave, we have a municipal engineer that's working on the project. And she's going to work with the DEP, make sure the concerns of the community are heard. I just want to say thanks to the team for putting this presentation together, responding to some of the requests of the council, and to make sure that we get off to a good start with construction activities for the project. So thank you guys all very much.
Thank you, Dennis, as always.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it, Dennis.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone on the call. Thank you so much for being here.
Appreciate it.
Excited to get started.